Hey, Lucid Legends, how are you? It's Chris here, the Chris in Chris Pool Translation team of translators who've been supporting all the APAC sales meetings with various people. And today I've thought to make a little training video for you, just to cover off an issue that's been bubbling away since early this year, the issue of Excel and why and how Japanese people use it, because this kept coming up in meetings. I had to start querying things and talking to people offline. And last week, in an amazing meeting with Tyler and Dave Bennett, it all came out, and I'm going to present the results of that meeting here. So we're going to do a deep dive into a bit of linguistics and a bit of Japanese culture in this little presentation. What happened in this meeting? This has been happening 4 or 5 times this year, that we're in a meeting with someone and they tell us that they've been doing all their diagramming up until now using Excel. Now, initially that's just like, why would you use Excel but whatever. Then they say, can we import our data? And I've been in these situations where they've said that and realized that I'm not really explaining the linguistic issue around this word data. Yeah, because what's happened is that people have said, well, we have an integration with Microsoft 365, and yeah, we can import databases and that sort of thing. And as they're saying all this, I realized that that's not what the Japanese mean, because Japanese people use Excel in a way other than was contemplated by the people who invented Excel. And so I need to first explain why the word data throws you off, yeah? All languages borrow words from other languages, yeah? A third of English was stolen from this language, that language, and the Japanese do it too. They import lots of English words. These are called loan words. Problem is, once Japanese people get hold of an English word, they go on to use it for a couple of decades, and in the process, they change the meaning. Same word, different meaning. And then an English speaker rocks up and hears the word in a Japanese sentence and thinks, I know what that means, it's my word. Wrong. It's now meaning something completely different. And data is a loan word that has become what we call in linguistics a faux ami, a false friend. Yeah. Now, it's not a big shift in meaning, but when we're talking about Excel, an English speaker is going to think data, surely you mean numerical data that is entered into the cells, which can be read and processed according to all the formulas that Excel provides, like here's me with my Lucidchart timesheet, yeah? That's not what data means in Japan. Data is basically the opposite of a hard copy. Anything electronic that can be sent by email, anything created electronically that you look at on the screen. And all they meant was, can we import into Lucidchart all the stuff that we've created in Excel? But they didn't create it like this. They don't use Excel like that. They use it like this. Oh my God. As a translator, as a member of the global brotherhood of translators, there's no such thing really. But anyway, we're all used to getting documents like this. Please translate this. And like, why have you done this in Excel? Why would you do that? It used to puzzle me too. Today, I think I've cracked it. But for years, it's just been so frustrating, such a cumbersome way to produce diagrams. But they love it. The Japanese keep doing this, yeah? So when they've spent years creating these diagrams, then they see Lucidchart, they want to be able to take all of this work, put it into Lucidchart. That's the question they were asking when they mentioned data. Okay, so that's the first problem. Well, now let's get into this bigger issue of why they use Excel this way. Right, more linguistics, yeah? What is a word? This is non-controversial for an English speaker. Everyone knows what a word is. Here's the definition. So it's a package of meaning that you can't split up into pieces that you can use, that can be used independently. Yeah, it's the smallest unit. Now, that's a strict definition of word. And in English, it happens to overlap with everyone's commonplace understanding of what a word is. Yeah, but that is a relatively unusual feature of English among all languages. And here's why. Yeah. So this is just to illustrate what I mean. There's an English sentence. There's each of the words. We know that they are separate words because of the spaces. In English, we leave a space between each word. Yeah. You could give that sentence to 10 English speakers and say, count the words. They would all say 6. Right? There's no ambiguity there. However, That's not the case with all languages. Look at them all. Oh, what a throng, teeming languages all over the world coveting my stuff. Yeah. There's so many of them. Now, different languages, two different languages necessarily means they are mutually unintelligible. So not dialects, there's many more dialects, but with a dialect, you sort of know what someone's saying. But all of these different languages, yeah, they're all very, very foreign. There's about 6,500. Now, here's the thing. Only that many have a writing system at all. And we only have the concept of the word in our minds because of written English with a space between each word. All languages, when they're spoken, there's no space between each word. That's why it's so hard to learn foreign languages. You can't tell where one finishes and the next one begins. Also, the spelling, that's only applicable to writing, because when we produce speech, depending on the word before and the word after, a particular word may be pronounced very differently at the head and the tail. And so the spelling is also kind of academic, how we abbreviate and modify and drop letters off and add them on when we're stringing together a verbal sentence. Yeah, it's only in writing that this counts. Yeah, and it's only that many languages that actually leave a space. And just before you work this out for yourself, in that orange bit there where they do not leave a space is Japanese. They have no concept of word. As an employer of Japanese people, starting off thinking to myself, yeah, there's a Japanese sentence, and that's how I would divide it up into words, because each of those units with a red square around it, you can't split that up and use any of the bits independently, and they each mean something, and they can each be replaced with something. But the Japanese don't even know what I mean when I say count the words. They count characters. That's a character. That's a character. They're characters. Each one is a character. Even the punctuation's a character. Even this thing, which is silent, it just tells you how to pronounce that thing. All characters. That's how, in their minds, they conceptualize their own language. Now, a result of this I'm about to introduce is that from hundreds of years ago, the basic writing paper for Japanese, oh yeah, I meant to mention, they're called moji. You know that word, because if you put e in front of it, which means picture, you get all this bullshit. Yeah, it's a loan word. Anyway, there they are, moji. Yeah, that is traditional Japanese writing paper. The genko yoshi, paper prepared for original draft. All students spend all their school years not just using this, but also, I've just learned, they all have in their school bag a notebook of graph paper. So they have genko yoshi and they have graph paper, and every Japanese person you ever meet who has been through the Japanese primary and secondary schooling system has grown up thinking that this is the normal background for any mark, drawing, writing that you make on paper. This could be a clue to what happened in Tyler's meeting, because it all came out last week. I apologize. Interpreters are meant to be neutral, they're meant to be black boxes, but I kind of interrupted because I had to track this down for the sake of everyone. I tell myself, we're in this meeting and they're saying the same thing that's happened so many times this year. Oh, we've done all of our work in Excel and we would be able to sort of move that across to Lucidchart. And that conversation happened. But then when Tyler and Dave Bennett were showing what could be done with an organizational chart, there were two Japanese people in this meeting and they started talking to one another, and they started to say, actually, I wasn't expecting this. This kind of looks like a slide, meaning PowerPoint. Yeah. And I was thinking, what makes it a slide? What's the issue? I couldn't understand what they meant by that. And they're talking amongst themselves. We were just waiting. Yeah. And the other guy said, yeah, gee, I was sort of hoping it would look like what. And then he says to us, he asked, can you kind of make it look like Excel? Now, this is what they've been looking at when they said, yeah, wasn't expecting that. And I had to push back. So I said, I got the recording of Tyler. So I've confirmed it. I said, what is it you're after when you want it to just look like Excel? And they weren't sure. He says, I don't know, it's just easier to use. I literally said, do you just want it to look like a Genko Yoshi? And he says, yes, that'd be good. And I said, but functionally, what are you after? Do you want to align the text boxes or anything like that? And he literally leant back in his chair and said, now they ask me, I'm not really sure. And I said, is it just a matter of being used to it or not being used to it? And they laughed and they said, maybe that's it. And while we're saying this, Dave says, fine. He pulls out the sidebar at the left. He puts a grid behind that illustration. And the two Japanese just said, that's good. That's it. I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I said, are you seriously saying that's all you wanted? You just want, yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay, lucid chart. There's the lesson. Yeah, okay. Like, it's purely appearance, and it's simply something that he literally said, it's just a feeling. Yeah. So here's the takeaways. If you're in a meeting with Japanese people and they start to talk about Excel, yeah, you've got to try and understand where Excel sits in their cultural consciousness. It's a thing they've grown up. The idea of a grid behind all of their cutout kindergarten paper diagrams or whatever, it's just something they've grown up with. Yeah. And they like the look of that grid. Yeah. This is completely aside from using Excel as a spreadsheet, which they also do, and which there probably will be conversations about that, but don't assume. Yeah. Get them to show you what they're talking about and what they want, and let's just make absolutely sure. And incidentally, lucid chart would probably benefit by being able to say, yes, everything you've just done in Excel, we can just grab that and copy and paste it into lucid chart. Apparently you can't do that at the moment. Anyway, a few other things we could get into there. I got to tell you, I worked for 5 years back in the 90s with a company setting up a joint venture to do an indoor sports system in Japan. 5 years flying back and forth to Japan, trying to talk to people. Each time these Aussies went over, they would take a deck of like a 30-slide presentation and a contract and a product description, big booklet. And eventually we got to meet the big man. Yeah. And someone inside the company said, listen, next week's meeting, everything you want to say, one A3 sheet of paper, and have lots of boxes and circles and arrows and colors. That's it. And they got the job done. Formed a joint venture. We should have a discussion about why that worked. Anyway, that's all for today, and I will see you all again soon. Excellent.